deliberations, the jury came back and the verdict is guilty.
You say?
Well, Leah, the face behind us is the face of a killer.
From his disdainful attitude towards her absence, to his concealment of substantial evidence of criminal activity, detectives will have to put together his wife's death because of the shocking turn of events that followed her abduction. However, this grisly crime serves as a reminder that humans are the most deadly and terrible animals on Earth because we are the only species capable of such horrible deeds. Is this retaliation or justice? And was the killing necessary? Stick with us till the very end as we unfold and uncover the chilling case of Kira Steger. This is Unsolved Files, a place where true crime stories are being brought to your doorstep. What are you waiting for? Just hit the subscribe button for more intriguing and suspense-filled crime stories. Now let's get back into this story and uncover this mystery. On November 19th, 1982, Kira K. Steger was born to Marcy and Jay Steger, who described Kira as an intelligent, devoted, and affectionate daughter. However, Kira was employed at the Mall of America, having previously worked at Delius and Wet Seal. Kira considered her co-workers to be family, in addition to being great friends. She possessed a unique talent for identifying people's strengths that they were unaware of. She planned forward and hoped for a happy, tranquil life. Sadly, all of her dreams came to a sudden halt when Kira disappeared. On February 21st, 2013, Kira had a shift. Her co-workers said on Thursday that she had been quite happy and had made plans to meet her spouse at a fancy restaurant after work. Kira first met Jeffrey Trevino 3 years ago. They fell in love as soon as they met, and this relationship finally resulted in marriage. You probably know that feeling of love at first sight, right? Jeffrey and Kira seemed like a happy, stable married couple overall. When they disagreed, it was always between them and nothing more. The arguments were, at the very least, unknown to their co-workers, acquaintances, or family members. 2 days later, on Saturday, February 23rd, Kira skipped work. Her co-workers were concerned because this was out of character for her. She adhered to her program scrupulously. She was strict with herself and other people, and she was always on time. When her co-workers couldn't get through to Kira, they called Jeffrey, who didn't know where she was. Jeffrey claimed that she had left the house the previous day and had not come back. He wasn't too concerned because Kira occasionally disappeared for a day or two. She would drop by a relative's house without warning or stay the night at a friend's house. One reason to have been concerned would have been the terrible weather that day, which was a heavy snowfall. Jeffrey thought maybe something had happened to her on the way. Maybe her phone's battery died and her automobile got stuck. After not hearing back from his wife that day, Jeffrey called Kira's family and filed a missing persons report. A loved one's unexpected disappearance caught her family members off guard and caused them significant loss. Detectives received a report of a missing person and in the meantime began looking for Kira Steger. The investigation started as usual in these situations, asking the husband questions and taking a quick check around the neighborhood. The detective went to talk to Jeffrey at his house. Detectives were given information that Jeffrey and Kira intended to spend some time together on Thursday. They talked, ate dinner, went bowling, and eventually left the mall. Jeffrey claims that because Kira insisted on seeing a movie, he and she immediately went back home. Furthermore, Jeffrey disclosed to the police that his spouse departed from their residence on a Friday morning. At approximately 8:30 a.m., she had a scheduled work event that she was obligated to attend. Even though he had no idea where Kira was or who she was hanging out with, he didn't think there was anything strange about the way she was acting. It didn't seem strange to Jeffrey that she would sometimes disappear. Meanwhile, Jeffrey also claims that they had relationship problems for a while, but he didn't think it was big or concerning, seeing it as just a little argument that occurs in every family. The investigators questioned Jeffrey about Kira's potential residence and the possibility that she had a lover. The man turned down this question because he had already asked Kira directly about it and got a negative response. Jeffrey claims that he genuinely loves and trusts his spouse. The detectives provided all the information they could find out about Kira and her car to the patrols that were on duty. She worked at the Mall of America while the investigators went in person to confirm Jeffrey's statements and maybe collect some evidence. Apparently, the Mall of America in Bloomington is purportedly one of the biggest retail centers in the world. In addition to 520 retailers, it offers a golf course, oceanarium cinemas, theme parks, and numerous other activities. The fact that the mall has a large number of security cameras installed is therefore not surprising. Nevertheless, since they were certain that there was nothing unusual in the footage, the investigators dug into Kira's departure time on February 21st. However, Jeffrey was telling the truth. He ran into Kira in the mall after work, and the two of them hung around for a while before getting into the car to leave. They appeared to get along well that evening and didn't argue. Meanwhile, the family's worry for Kira's life increased every day, as there's nothing worse than having to wait and not knowing what's going on. Weary of waiting and without hearing from her, Kira's family decided to travel to Bloomington to try to help with the inquiry. They created flyers with her pictures, hung them from trees, and distributed them to passers-by. Their goal was to bring Kira's search as much attention as possible. They realized they could no longer stand by and watch. They had to use every resource at their disposal to locate their loved one. While Kira's family started distributing flyers, the investigators continued their search. And while interviewing the couple's neighbors, officers found a surveillance camera on one of their neighbors' homes. The sideways rotating camera captured one view of Kira and Jeffrey's home. Therefore, the investigators asked the homeowner to record the camera footage again in an attempt to extract any evidence. Furthermore, in the interim, records from a cellular phone provider were received, providing detectives with a new lead. Based on her phone records, Kira was dating someone other than Jeffrey. It turned out that Ryan Wendt, the manager of the same chain of businesses she worked for, was who it turned out to be. They had a very lengthy and close relationship during which they exchanged letters often. Though Kira's location remained unknown, the authorities managed to ascertain that Ryan Wendt was traveling towards Colorado from outside the country. This was a significant man for the investigation since, in addition to dating Kira, he moved out of state around the time she disappeared. Was it nothing more than a mere coincidence? Or if everything were different, is there a deeper significance to his escape? The investigators would have to find the answer to that. Still, the investigators managed to track down Ryan, and he provided a wealth of information when he agreed to come to Colorado for questioning. The last time he said he spoke to Kira was over a text message while traveling through South Dakota. They had exchanged these texts shortly before Kira's disappearance. After closely studying the timing of the text conversations, detectives found that Kira had been in contact with her new lover during dinner with her husband. It was now obvious from their correspondence that Kira and Jeffrey were becoming less close. The police examined Ryan's credit card bills and used his phone to determine his location in reference to the mobile towers. He seemed to be out of state and had nothing to do with Kira's disappearance that particular evening. He was taken off the suspect list and declared free as a result. The text messages' timestamps revealed that Kira continued to communicate with Ryan even after she and her spouse arrived home. But at 11:44 p.m., their talk came to an end, and Kira hasn't touched her phone since. Meanwhile, another team of detectives was getting ready to go over the security camera footage that was mounted at Kira's neighbor's house. This camera covered the majority of the road by moving left and right, but because it was spinning too fast, it was hard to watch because the camera would rapidly flip to the other side if the investigators noticed anything odd. The brief moment that they got to see Jeffrey and Kira's house was cut short when the camera shifted to the right. Jeffrey told the detective that he and Kira went home, watched a movie, and went to bed after dinner and bowling. On the other hand, Kira's automobile was seen retracting into the yard just after 2 a.m. by the investigators who had studied the video. The video quality was bad, and the camera was moving back and forth a lot, so it was hard to see exactly what was on screen at that moment. But the car left their house rather quickly. Jeffrey explained that the late-night outing was because Kira had asked him to fill her gas tank before she departed for work the next day. Remarkably, his version of events proved true. He was seen at the gas station at about 3 a.m, but the cops discovered that, for some reason, he didn't head home after leaving the gas station and instead made his way towards the highway. The neighbor's camera was continuously spinning, but it did not record him returning home, so it's unclear where he went after that. As a result, it might have been a coincidence. In the actual sense, Jeffrey might have gone back home later that day with the camera facing the other way. The investigators' further analysis of the footage showed that Kira's Chevrolet departed at approximately 9:21 a.m. Regretfully, it was impossible to determine who was behind the wheel. A missing persons report was filed with the police on Saturday, February 23rd, and a call regarding the discovery of an odd-looking car was received on Monday, February 25th. Obviously, Kira's workplace was near a shopping center with two-story parking lots. When the security guards noticed that a certain car had been left parked for several days, they called for a tow truck. The truck driver examined the automobile before he picked it up and saw what seemed like odd red smudges on the car lid. He gave the cops a call right away. That car turned out to be Kira's white Chevy. There were only a few little stains and not much blood, but the fact that it was there was terrible news. When Kira's abandoned automobile was searched, documents related to her divorce were found inside her purse. It looks like these documents were downloaded from the internet. As they got closer, they saw a rolled-up trunk mat with dark stains on the back. They also observed a little black object that was lying in the snow behind the car. Meanwhile, DNA testing confirmed that the blood belonged to Kira Steger. With regret, the investigators came to terms with Kira's likely death. This horrific discovery stunned her friends and family. The realization that they had given up on ever seeing Kira again raised a lot of questions in their minds. Who could have possibly caused this distress to her, given how irate they were with her? How did she pass away? Did she experience pain? However, Kira's absence made matters worse because it was far more difficult to cope with the loss that had befallen them. Finding the motorist who left the automobile in the parking lot was now the investigators' top priority. The automobile left the residence at 9:21 a.m. About 20 minutes later, the mall's cameras captured it. Although there were no cameras in the parking area where the automobile was discovered, there was one on the walkway that led to it. The camera was positioned not far from Kira's car. The investigators noticed a man with a hood over his head in the video of that camera, taken just a short time after the white Chevrolet pulled into the parking lot. The man's whereabouts piqued the cops' interest, even though his choice of hoodie seemed appropriate given the temperature. The hooded individual was seen walking across the street, approaching a taxi stand, and having a brief conversation with one of the drivers before getting inside the car and leaving. Authorities, in any case, identified the owner of the taxis that were parked in the retail center's parking area, B. Based on the hooded man's interactions with the driver, the police had little issue determining the license plate number of the vehicle. Every taxi had GPS monitoring devices fitted, and it turned out that the hooded man had ended up a block away from Kira and Jeffrey's house, where he had paid with cash and got out of the car. As the cab drove out of the neighborhood, the same camera that had recorded some of the footage from Kira and Jeffrey's house remained trained on it. 2 minutes later, a hooded figure appeared in the frame. The video was so low quality that it was impossible to see his face, but the white insignia on his sweater popped out. As the investigators kept watching the tape, they noticed the hooded figure walking into Kira and Jeffrey's house. With Kira absent, the hooded figure was almost certainly Jeffrey. Having obtained a search warrant, the police officers showed up at the residence. At first glance, it seemed like just another boring old house, but that was just the initial impression. Upon deeper examination, criminal investigators began to find large bloodstains in the spouse's bedrooms. There were a few stains on the wall beside the bed, and there were perhaps 100 on the mattress. The bedroom looked like it had just been cleaned and organized. There were several bloodstains on the carpet that were imperceptible to the naked eye, and the floor's carpet practically lit up when the forensics team sprayed luminol on it. These stains traveled to the opposite side of the home from the bedroom. The forensics team was able to positively identify Kira's blood, confirming the authorities' suspicions that she had passed away. But the cops also searched Jeffrey's car and the interior of the house. They found something interesting, but they didn't find any indications of an automobile or blood within the car itself. Jeffrey's automobile included a gas station receipt, which shows that Jeffrey's card was used to make the transaction, an hour and 40 minutes before Kira's car was abandoned in the mall parking lot. Apparently, investigators visited that gas station to review the security footage. In addition to showing us a view of Jeffrey's face and revealing that his jacket had a logo on the breast area that matched the one on the hooded man in the previous video. The video also showed Jeffrey filling up his car, entering, and using an ATM to get cash. Nevertheless, this tape and every other piece of evidence found within the house led to the issuance of a warrant for the arrest of 39-year-old Jeffrey Trevino. He became the lone and principal suspect after being brought to the police station to be questioned. Jeffrey called his attorney as soon as he was allowed to leave the interview room, and the attorney advised him to assert his right to quiet. His body would provide the strongest evidence of his guilt, even though the police had enough to file an indictment against him. The fact that Kira was dead was without dispute. The police, Kira's family, and several volunteers searched for her for months. More so in late March, as the snowdrift started to melt, Volunteers at Keller Lake, a few kilometers from Trevino's residence, discovered an unusual bag along the highway. They told the police right away that inside the bag was a bra, a bloodied pillow, and a shirt. The forensics team was able to link the discovery to Kira because her DNA was discovered on the objects. Although the lake's ice cover persisted, making it challenging, divers searched the body of water. There were still no remains within. The area around the lake was searched multiple times with 4 search dogs trained to find bodies, but to no effect. 2.5 months after Kira's disappearance, on May 8, 2013, the St. Paul Police Department received a worrisome call. The postal caller informed the operator that they had seen what seemed to be a dead body in the Mississippi River. It came out that what the police retrieved from the water was a body. There were no clothes on it. Medical documents state that Kira Steger's body was there and that she suffered severe blunt force injuries to her forehead, in addition to breaking her left index finger. How can someone be this cruel? Shouldn't he have just left the adulterous woman? Why this evil torture? Because of the degree of decomposition, the medical examiners were unable to establish a definite cause of death. Using the new evidence, investigators tried to piece together the events leading up to Kira's death and the ones that followed. They conjectured that, upon arriving home, Jeffrey either discovered or noticed that Kira was texting someone else. Kira's husband aggressively snatched her phone and broke her finger when she refused to show him the messages. Jeffrey was even more enraged after reading the amorous communication, and in a fit of rage, he killed Kira before trying to conceal the evidence of the crime. He drove to the house using her car, put the body in the trunk, and then drove to a petrol station by a river and emptied it. While he was driving back home, he also emptied the bag containing Kira's clothes and pillow. The next morning, he went to a petrol station and took out cash from an ATM because he knew he would need to pay for a cab after leaving Kira's car in the parking lot of the mall, and it would be quicker to do it that way. After disposing of Kira's car, Jeffrey went back home and used deception to clean for the rest of the day. Jeffrey wanted everyone to think Kira was all right and that she had left in her car alone that morning. Nevertheless, security cameras foiled his plan. A jury returned a guilty verdict on October 2, 2013, agreeing with the defense that 39-year-old Jeffrey Trevino had not planned the crime and that it had resulted from an abrupt and heated exchange after he discovered his wife had an extramarital affair. Before the judge decided Kira's sentence, the family members of the victim gave testimony. Kira Steger, Kira's sister, said he wasn't worthy of pity. Trevino certainly had no mercy on Kira. Her mother, Marcy, said, "He had thrown my daughter into the most polluted body of water in the nation like a piece of trash." Regardless of the consequences, Trevino's father, Jay, believes that the pain he has caused their family cannot be undone. He said that it would never be enough to give Mr. Trevino more time. A sentence of 27.5 years in jail was handed down to Jeffrey Trevino in November 2013. Maybe he will be qualified for parole in 2031. Why the leniency? Shouldn't he face a life sentence? Or perhaps the ultimate punishment? His monstrous actions demand no less. Share your thoughts in the comments. And for another chilling tale, explore our previous video on the shocking murder case that rocked Japan in 2017. Witness the chilling details now.